All right, everyone. Hi, my name is Jane Thayer. Um, I am the program manager of artists in residence in the Everglades, also known as AIRIE, and we work in partnership with the Everglades National Park, um, which you'll learn more about that partnership today. We have closed captions. I'm not sure if you're able to manipulate them yourselves, but this is the first time we're using them. All right, everyone. Hi, my name is Jane Thayer. And we're also streaming on Facebook, which is the sound you might have just heard. So you can feel free if you want to go watch us over there, watch us there. We're also in this Zoom platform. Artists in residence in the Everglades empowers artists to think creatively and critically about their relationship to the environment while revealing new paths forward. I am looking at a few different screens, so that's why my eyes are going all over the place. Before we start, I would like to say a few thank yous. First of all, thank you for joining us today. This is our monthly series called AIRIE Asks. It's a platform for our AIRIE fellows and our partners to share information about their work. I would also like to thank our board of directors. Their support and work is invaluable to our mission. Finally, a big thank you to our donors. Our programs are supported by John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, by the Andy Warhol Foundation for the Visual Arts, by the National Endowment for the Arts, the Perez Crearte Grants Program, Miami-Dade County Department of Cultural Affairs, the Department of State Division of Cultural Affairs, the Wegge Foundation, and the Camilla and Earl McGrath Foundation, among other donors. Our donors' support of our programming is greatly appreciated, and we will always sing your praises. So today, we are going to welcome our own new as of January board co-chair T. Robertson Carter and Pedro Ramos, the Superintendent of Everglades and Dry Tortugas National Parks. They are in conversation today for the first of a three-part series on diversity and inclusion. And you guys will learn about the unique partnership that AIRIE has with Everglades National Park during this conversation. You'll learn about diversity and inclusion that AIRIE is going to be working for in the next season. And I will be able, at the end of the conversation, to talk a little more about the AIRIE 2022 residency application. So please make sure you stay tuned to the end of the conversation for that. But for now, I am honored to welcome Tracy Robertson Carter and Superintendent Pedro Ramos. Please enjoy the conversation and come on, open your cameras and microphones and have a great conversation.
Hey, thank you, Jane. Hi, Tracy. How are you?
Hi, Pedro. How are you? We're doing this.
Awesome. It's good to see that face.
It's good to see you too.
You're always smiling. You've got such great energy.
Thank you so much. No, thank you. No, I'm happy. Not only am I happy to be in conversation with you, but I'm happy that my Wi-Fi is working, my lighting's good, and I know some of my friends out there are laughing and throwing me hard signs.
I'm always like this every time I'm going to have one of these meetings.
Absolutely. So listen, we're just going to chat, and I'm really excited to have you here. And you know, it means a lot to me, your support and the support of the Everglades National Park and the National Park Service for us, AIRIE, the only, I guess, privately funded art residency in the National Park Service program. So we're just overjoyed, and it being our 20th season. I mean, come on. So I'm really excited.
There's a lot of history behind us and a lot of great achievements. So this is a really, really great and exciting opportunity for me.
Thank you. So what we're going to just start with, let's just tell everyone a little bit about ourselves. I'm going to start with you because I know that you're back home. So I didn't know if you could just share a little bit about yourself as well as some of the things you're involved in. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm calling in from San Juan, Puerto Rico. I got here last week. My 90-year-old mom is with us, and I did my little quarantine and ended up testing negative and being able to go in her house at 90. I want to be really careful in time for Valentine's Day. So I had a wonderful time with mom, and it's really special, you know, to be here at the San Juan National Historic Site. That's where I'm calling you from. I don't know if you may notice a little bit of a different architecture from the windows behind me. I am in the belly of the National Park fort here in Old San Juan. There's two main castles to the complex of fortifications, and I am currently inside of the San Cristobal castle. And very historic place with you know, a lot of history, not only about, you know, Puerto Rico and my culture, but the history of the discovery and so much, you know, so many stories. My story began here in this place. So I think it's very appropriate that we're having a conversation about this stuff right in the place where my own story with the National Park System started, right here at the San Juan National Historic Site.
Wow. No, thank you. No, it's very special. As they say, everything happens for a reason. And I'm glad we're here on this day and doing this with you today. Absolutely. And so, yeah, a little bit, I'm here, I'm actually here because, or involved with AIRIE because I'm thinking back to my earliest engagement with the parks. And it actually was with David Lawrence. David Lawrence brings a group of, I know you know him well from the Children's Trust and Knight Foundation and so many incredible organizations. But David had invited my husband and I and with a whole group of other, I guess, young professionals at the time on a very early morning trip out to the Everglades. And then he gave us the book, The Swamp. And coming from Jamaica, San Francisco, I wouldn't tell you that I was I didn't know much about this entire ecosystem that's happening in the Everglades and how unique it is. And then to, you know, fast forward after living here about 9 years and having a dear friend, the former board chair, Valerie Ricordi, invite me to be co-chair with Esther Park, which I can't wait for, you know, you to get to know her. It is so important because it's at the right timing where the things that are important to me, which are around equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging, being an advocate for that, along with the environment, which we all need to be advocates for. And this coming together under AIRIE just makes it that much better, you know, with the arts and everything, that much better. So,
you know, I think that there are as many stories as there are people in terms of how we each have connected. Just like you shared your experience coming into and learning about the Everglades. My experience started right here, as I said a few minutes ago, at the San Juan National Historic Site, and it was from the time that I was a little kid. You know, my mom, shortly after my father passed away, I was 7 years old, and she chose the San Juan National Historic Site as the place that we would go out as a family. And, you know, I think she was really smart in choosing this place and very intentional. And we would come out here, not only did we meet other families, and, you know, I had the opportunity to experience the outdoors. There's some really incredible green areas here right in the old city of San Juan. But it was here on these grounds of this park that I'm calling you from that I learned a lot about who I was as a Puerto Rican, you know, what my history was for this island where I came from, and who I was as an American. You know, this is the place that, you know, you learn a lot of things in school, but this place taught me some very, very important lessons about who I was, about my own identity back then. And, you know, I grew up valuing, for those reasons, this concept that we have in our country, which is now not unique. It's been replicated around the world, but it is a country that really provides any of us the opportunity to learn about who we are. And, you know, to later on in life, then realize that on top of that, you know, the most special place that we have on the island of Puerto Rico, as far as I'm concerned,
Yeah.
belongs not just some people that can afford an entrance fee or whatever. It belongs to all of us. It was the equalizer, right? I came to play with kids from all kinds of backgrounds. And when we were there playing as little kids, there was no rich or poor. There was none of that. And that's the magic of the national park system. And that's where that experience of that magic happened for me right here from the place that I'm getting the opportunity to call you today.
Can I ask you this, because we're starting a bit with our why, you know, and so we've already gotten into like why we're doing the things we do. But could you tell us a little bit about how you actually got involved with the National Park Service, since we're going to be talking about diversity and inclusion and access, but how did you get involved?
You know, getting in with not just the National Park Service, getting in with government, whether you are a young person coming out of school or whether you're, you know, a seasoned trying to get into federal government and the National Park Service simply because you love our mission, can be difficult. And, you know, to be honest with you, it's somewhat of a mystery still for many people. It is hard. For me, my story started with a different agency. I joined the Department of Agriculture as a student. I went to school in Massachusetts, and there were some people recruiting for an agency that worked with agriculture in rural places. And they basically hired me right out of college. I went to the Virgin Islands for 7 years, which is just up the Caribbean Sea here, about 60 miles from where I'm sitting right now. And I remained with that agency, the Farmers Home Administration. It is now called Rural Development, for just a little bit over 10 years. But I kept my sights on the National Park Service. From the beginning, I said, okay, I'll join the federal government. And I'm grateful that USDA gave me the opportunity to get in, because I knew even at that time that it was hard. But I kept my eyes on the National Park Service. And it was in the year 2000 that you know, I applied for a position at Big Cypress National Preserve in South Florida. And I didn't hear from anybody for like 3 months. I thought, you know, those people are not even thinking about me. And one day they called me. I remember it as if it was today, and they offered me the job. And it was really a dream come true. And, you know, it was 6 years later that I was here as an acting superintendent in the San Juan National Historic Site, when the former director of the National Park Service, the first woman director of the National Park Service, Fran Manella, asked me, you know, would you go to Puerto Rico and serve as acting superintendent for 5 months or so? And I said, I think I will. And and you know, it's been an adventure ever since. It's been an amazing experience, and I truly see it as a privilege to be part of a family of employees who are part of 100-plus-year-old tradition.
Yes.
Protecting and preserving our most special places and sharing them with the American people, with all of the American people, not just some people.
Right.
These places belong to all of us.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for sharing that piece, because this leads us into, sorry, it's reverberating. This leads us into talking about access, right? So, and I appreciate the transparency around part of this process for you was a mystery, and part of the process of even learning, right, around what we're learning also at AIRIE in our 20-year history, which has been phenomenal, with over 185 artists as part of a very, as you would say, democratic, open call for residencies. But what we found from just doing a bit of our research in our own home is that we needed to make sure that we're also creating access, taking the mystery out or taking any barriers out, which we'll talk about a little bit later in our convo, around making sure that we're appealing to a wide audience. So I know you're talking about as being getting a job with the National Park Service, but with AIRIE or with any of the other organizations I'm part of, I know that access word, that's everything. Knowing how to participate, knowing how to engage. And it's, all of our roles, which is why it's so great to be in conversation with you, because as a superintendent, me as a board member, those who are listening to our conversation, everyone has the ability to kind of help take out that mystery, help create more of a straight line, a linear line to opportunity.
I go beyond calling it an ability. I think it is our duty. I think it is.
Absolutely.
Again, I feel such a sense of privilege to be able to hold the position that I have. And, I'm getting a little older. I'm 53 years old now.
Right there. You're right.
And that sense of responsibility, I think, is reaching a different level where, I really preoccupy myself nowadays with regards to who's going to, first of all, feel and live that sense of ownership for these places. And the demographics in our country, I wouldn't say are changing. They have changed. They changed a long time ago. Whoever doesn't see that, they need to open their eyes. And so it is a matter of ensuring our success into the future. And also with respect to who's going to take the helm and who's going to take the jobs that I and others on my team have. Those are the greater questions that I oftentimes find myself grappling with. And, it's hard work. It shouldn't be, but it is hard work to make sure that we do everything we do in a way that is inviting and welcoming of particularly communities that have not been at the table with the National Park Service over the years, because those communities are going to be the majority in a period of time here. Those are going to be the people in Congress. Those are going to be the people in local and state governments that will get to choose whether appropriations come our way to be able to do the work we do in preserving these stories and places for a long time. We are in the forever business. These places weren't set aside for the American people for a year or 20 years or 50 years.
Right.
The National Park Service unit is set aside for the American people. It is in perpetuity. And so, we've got a lot of work ahead of us to make sure that the full face of America, that all of those faces are represented at the table, not only in visitation, but also in our workforce. It is just one of the most critical things that we have to work on. And, I hope that will be part of my legacy when I retire, that we have moved the needle in that direction, even if just a little bit more.
I have a dear friend who at New World Symphony who shared with me about promises. And I just want the words around duty and promise and legacy, these are the things that, yes, I feel very blessed to be in this position, to be able to engage with you today, to be able to engage with the artists, to be better engaged and wider and engaged with a wider audience of artists as we do this next residency call, which I'll definitely talk a little bit more about later. But it definitely is a privilege to be able to be in this position to do that. And I want to say, even though we've never actually we've talked a few times, but hearing words like duty, and the privilege to do this. And I will say, my dear friend always talks about promises. Promises are promises. And that's all, we're doing our work. And in the African-American community, they would call it village work. You probably heard that, right? So our village work is, it's really important that we take that to heart, because we need the village in order to make this happen. And, and you're a big part of that village, being the superintendent of the park, and I think I just want to get right into talking about then some of our mutual goals. And I wanted to start with, we're in conversation. So I want to make sure that anyone who's listening, that we're talking, but we've got strategic plans. We've got measures and metrics in place, because nothing happens without acknowledging where we've been and planning the goals for where we're going. We know that. But in terms of our conversation, I just wanted to talk about some of our mutual goals, and I outlined them around removing barriers, creating access, engaging diverse audiences and artists, and prioritizing inclusion. So with a couple of those titles, is there anywhere that maybe you want to start with around some of the mutual goals of where we've been? I can speak about AIRIE, you about the national parks, and where we're going around, the context of some of those goals and mutual goals that we have in mind around access and inclusion.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're here to talk
That's
about.
what we're,
and I would start by acknowledging the important place that AIRIE has held now for nearly 20 years.
absolutely. Yeah.
I give credit to you and your predecessors. You mentioned Valerie Ricordi, the former chair. And like her, there are many people that over the last 20 years have worked with us, because we saw something mutually 20 years ago. We saw an opportunity. These places are places that, because they belong to everybody, and because we have to do our work in a way that is inclusive of everybody, we have to speak all languages. And I'm not talking about English, Spanish, Chinese, or whatever. I'm speaking about the different languages of what motivates us, the African-American community, the Hispanic community, the white community. It doesn't matter. We need to speak all those languages. It is our responsibility. And early on, we realized that not only have the National Park Service had a long history with the arts. I mean, that connection between the National Park Service and the arts dates back to the late 1800s and is documented. But, I think that back then, artists came to get inspired. And I think still to this day, artists come to get inspired at these places. The way that I look at it is our opportunity to exponentially inspire others by the work that artists do when they come and get inspired, and they create and they share it with people that they sell their art to, or that they expose on galleries. Those are moments when we are speaking a language that we must be speaking in order to connect with people that otherwise would have no context on which to make a connection with these places. And so, AIRIE is an example of the many languages that I, as a superintendent with my team at Everglades National Park, are committed to engage in. And we are right now transitioning from one administration to another, and I'm not about to talk any politics. So those of you out there that love politics, that's not where I'm headed, because the work that we do is not political. But the transition is taking place, and I can tell you that the leadership that's coming into place right now at the Department of Interior, that has already been having conversations with people like myself, I serve in a senior leadership position, are talking about priorities that they will carry out over the next 4 years that include diversity, not only in our visitation, but in our workforce, that include inclusiveness in everything that we do. every time so far over the past, 3 weeks or so, that comes out clearly and it comes out as a priority. And so, I'm sitting here looking at this as an opportunity for all of us to take advantage of the moment. This is a priority for the department. It is a priority for the National Park Service at this moment. And there are as many things as there are people in this meeting that we could dream up to do to help make those connections. I am preoccupying myself with hiring diverse candidates for jobs that we offer at Everglades National Park. And I preoccupy myself in developing programs with our team that make all of the communities that want to come out and visit Everglades National Park feel welcome. So, those are some of the things that we're working on. And I'm super excited to announce that just in 2 weeks, I have a deputy superintendent that I selected late last year who will be joining us. Her name is Sabrina Diaz. She's a Hispanic woman, and she is pumped up to come and join the Everglades National Park team in a community down here in South Florida, or down there in South Florida, that is predominantly Hispanic. And, we need to have good representation in our workforce and in our visitation. I am the first Hispanic superintendent of the park in 70 years. And I'll pause there.
That's a great pause, because, let's take a moment with that. Because the difference is, and we're not talking politics, we're talking we're talking about inclusion, is that we have a priority now around that's based in, and actually you had a great quote that you said at the last year's volunteer training that I went to around, number one priority is around protecting your team as well as your visitors with COVID, but also a mutual number one priority was around inclusion, because it's so key to the relevance of the park. And what you're sharing here in 74 years, we talked a little bit about this, you are living in Miami, and it is a pretty big deal that now at 74 years, 75th being next year, when we're also launching our AIRIE 2022, is that we are all in sync around the absolute importance of having everyone at the table and everyone involved, and particularly when it comes to the environment and engage with the environment. So I'm glad you took a pause there.
You say 2022, anytime that you're doing the kind of work that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Celebrations. I'm Hispanic. I'm here in Puerto Rico. We love. Yep. I don't know how to do anything in small groups. I'm like this. I'm very inclusive by nature. And next year, I think you guys are celebrating your 20 years, and we're celebrating.
We're in the 20th season now, but yeah, we'll keep celebrating. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So, we're celebrating 75 years since we were designated and inaugurated as a National Park Service unit in the United States. So a lot to celebrate. And again, those are opportunities that we have in order to welcome other people that have not been at the table yet.
So what I want to, what we're addressing is around those themes around removing the barriers, creating access and engaging a wider audience for our application process, particularly, and prioritizing inclusion. A lot of that, I actually have to make note. I have a beautiful piece behind me by a very dear friend, but also a member of our National Advisory Committee, which I definitely want to shout out to anybody who's on for the advisory committee. It's a pretty awesome group of folks. But I'm recognizing Amanda Williams and all of those who are on the advisory committee, because we knew we needed to bring a group in of leaders. I know Jane will, there's so many names, and definitely check them out on AIRIE.org under our National Advisory Committee, more to come on that. But the reason that we knew in order to reach these goals that we needed to bring in other voices. We needed to bring in to making sure that we had leaders in the arts who are helping us to kind of steer the way forward and making sure that we are engaging a wider audience of artists. And so one thing that the National Advisory Committee helped us with is around everything and looking at access. So one thing with access that could have been a barrier that we in our past, in our 20-year history, maybe just weren't aware of, is even the access and the ability to do a 30-day or the ability to do a 30-day residency. So we've done things like increase the residency from a $1,000 stipend to a $4,000 stipend, unrestricted, for the research residency, and then added on travel. And we knew that, again, as a leader, that it's very, very much an important part to make sure that we are creating something that is can be engaged with a whole bunch of different folks who in the past maybe having to commit to certain things wouldn't have been able to make it a possibility. Another thing is around, and that's why we're also here today, around making that a friendly space. The actual, I'll say the cocoon of the Everglades and the team that's at the Everglades and our team that would be working with our artists, that's one thing. But what's really, really important is also for people who are engaging and coming to Florida, coming to South Florida, to know that not only are they welcome, but that, there are, that we're aware and that we are here to support. That is something that also came out of speaking with this National Advisory Committee. These are things that you hear, but when you're putting out an application and trying to engage a wider audience, it's not, it's something that, again, with having a BIPOC group of folks involved in this process with us, you're able to think a little bit more around some of those subtle things that may seem insignificant, but they're very, very important. You and I talked about one of them. I think you shared, well, I would love for you to share that story when we're talking about access around your family and camping. I think you shared around right, that there was some ordinance put in place to lower, it was too loud or something was happening in the park, so they lowered the amount of people who could come together. But would you mind sharing that? Because I thought that was a great story.
This one plays out in a lot of national parks and also, state parks around the country. There's a lot of places where you go camping and you cannot get a site if you're camping with a group.
Right.
And so, something as simple as that, and maybe even well meant, because the idea behind it is that if you keep groups smaller, then there's a little bit more quiet on the campground and that kind of thing. But what you're not thinking and trying to provide opportunities for, if you're going to limit the group number in some areas of a park, is that there are communities like this one, the Hispanic community, where to do things in groups. And we wouldn't, sometimes go out and camp in a place unless we could, bring the extended family and, and the neighbor, little kid or whatever. And so there are sometimes unintended consequences, management actions that we take in places like national parks. And, we are at this point in time, because we realize the importance of connecting with an audience that we have not been connecting with, we're more open-minded than we have been in the past to overcome some of that thinking. And again, I've been around for 20 years in this agency, 32 years, going on 32 years pretty soon, federal government. And in the National Park Service, I can tell you, this hasn't been an intentional thing. It's just that we haven't been thoughtful enough. If we really mean that these places belong to everybody and we want everybody to use them, then we have to invite people to the table of all backgrounds to review and to define policies that ultimately become management actions that could have the consequences if not properly filtered through appropriate thinking. But you know, I think that what AIRIE has done over the past 20 years to help us connect with people that we wouldn't have connected otherwise, I am certain of that, is monumental. I don't think that we can put a measure to it, and maybe that's something that we can think about at some point. But if we were to measure it and report out on it, I think, and I'm convinced that it would be significant. And you know, it's been significant enough from our perspective as an agency that we gave you a place at our visitor center. You know, I think it was through the generosity of the Knight Foundation that the the nest was able to be installed right at the visitor center. And you know, that was our expression, our acknowledgement as an agency and as a park, that this relationship is paying dividends, that this relationship is having some very positive impacts on some things that are really important to us.
I want to give a look, you know, definitely want to acknowledge that Alan Scott from your team, you know, Alan, our favorite ranger, and Donna Markser, who's no longer with us, but, you know, who is an artist who started this 20 years ago with the idea of what I would think, even what we're doing today, creating a conversation that is something that a unique conversation that artists, which we'll talk a little bit more about that in the second part of our series together, because it will be around our new residencies and our artists taking on a prompt and a theme this year. But the more I've learned about Donna Markser, and those who don't know her work, please, I believe it's donnamarkser.art. But she started this 20 years ago, and she's someone that was all about conversation, and the same that I got from Alan, who's Alan Scott, who is about access. He shared a wonderful story with me about how he, as a white person, got involved with the Everglades National Park, and it was through an internship. And he shared with me that it's because he could afford to do the internship that now he has a 35-year plus career, you know, wonderful career with the park. So even all those, you know, getting to know each other, knowing our similarities and acknowledging what we know are some of the barriers, that's the difference of how we're going to move forward with AIRIE. And I'm hoping, you said I did my homework. You also love that I remembered that I believe the Department of Interior is 25% less diverse than any other department in the government. And
and then, you know, and don't tell me that it's that because people of color don't like the outdoors.
Absolutely not. You're right.
You know, that I'm not gonna buy that. We need to make more of an effort. And I honestly been around for a while. It has been intentional. I think we have to be thoughtful about how we manage these places, about messaging, about how we present ourselves, about the organizations that we affiliate ourselves with and partner with strategically, so that we can turn that around and truly be representative of the face of America, again, not only in our visitation, but also in our workforce.
Okay, no, this is wonderful. And I wanted to also point out that, so we've partnered with some new friends this year. We have some wonderful friends that we've had for so long, but this year we have an official partnership with, and one of our advisory members, Reverend Houston Cypress. You know, he took me out to, I had a wonderful day with him and a group and some of an artist, and he took us to the tree islands of his Miccosukee family. And he spoke a lot about storytelling. He's an artist as well, but he spoke a lot about storytelling, the importance of storytelling, which is part of what we're doing now. And then also, if you check out Outdoor Afro, I think it's at Outdoor Afro, they have an incredible campaign going on right now for Black History Month. And it's hashtag Black History Outdoors. And, you know, I'll hold some of our other, you know, there's some folks in the National Park Service that I will look very much forward to sharing more commitment that we have potentially at a an event we're going to have at the end of the year, which is our summit. We're looking to one of your rangers to be one of our keynotes, but I'll hold that little surprise. But those are all things that, yes, that's now there's an intentionality around all of this. So we're about to wrap up this first part of our conversation. I've seen on the bottom, there's a million questions coming in, but next time we are gonna have a different conversation and definitely wanna answer all those questions. But for today, we wanted to set the foundation for that there is intention here, that we're moving forward. And again, congratulations to you on your role in all of this and with us, and into your wonderful team, Ted and Bryony as well. But I wanted to leave you with the last word as we wrap up. Is there anything you'd like to share again around access and inclusion and in the environment?
So, I just noticed that there's a few questions there, and we're wrapping up. I will say that, yes, I was interviewed before I was offered the job. I hope that after 24 minutes, you did get a little bit of more content about AIRIE, and if not, look it up, because learn about what they've done over the past 20 years. And if it interests you, I encourage you to get involved. They've helped us in a big way. And night skies, Diana Umpierre, always pushing for the night skies. We are definitely looking to continue developing opportunities for Floridians to experience the night sky, which is, truly half of Everglades National Park and Big Cypress. Amazing dark skies there, as well as dry Tortugas. Last comments. Do something about it. Listen to yourself in terms of how Everglades National Park and the National Park System may speak to you, and find a way to be responsive to that feeling that you may have. These are the places that tell the story of who we are, whether natural or historical sites. They are the places that tell the story of who we are as a nation, of who we are as Americans. I have spoken in European countries, I've spoken in the Caribbean, I've spoken in Central and South America, and everybody asks me the same question. How were the American people able to establish and develop a system of parks that resulted in them representing an identity of a nation? How did you guys pull it off? And maybe that's for another day, but we pulled it off. The National Park System reflects the identity of our nation. Other countries have tried to do so, and they have wonderful national park systems, but not like ours. We are an example. Stay involved, do something, even if it's just simply to come and visit and enjoy any of our national parks in South Florida. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Pedro, and thank you so much. And everyone, we will be doing this again. I'm hoping that we'll have some other, sorry. I don't know what happened there. We're going to have some other guests with us. We're definitely going to be talking more about this residency application that will open on April 2021. And I'll hand it off to Jane to tell you a little bit about that. And just thank you for being with us today. More to come. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a wonderful note to end on, Superintendent Ramos. Thank you, Tracy.